President-elect Joe Biden has begun preparing for his transition into the White House, but President Donald Trump continues to cry foul about how votes were cast, saying that fraud was committed, though no proof has been provided as of yet. As senior Republican officials are backing his legal challenges, some of them at least, we heard from Mitch McConnell last hour. To dig into all of this and more, I'm joined now by David Wilkins. He served as U.S. Ambassador to Canada from 2005 to 2009 under U.S. President George W. Bush. He joins us from Greenville, South Carolina. Hi, Ambassador. Good to have you with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
I wanted to start off, before getting into the Canada-U.S. relationship, if you don't mind, with the status of where things are at. We're all kind of glued to reaction from Republican leaders, the latest from the Trump campaign, which continues to allege that certain amounts of fraud took place. How do you envision this playing out over the next little while?
Well, I think it'll take a while. I think we all have to remember back in 2000 when my boss, George W. Bush, and Vice President Gore had a contested race, and it was well over 30 days before it was finally finished. And we had two appeals to the Florida Supreme Court and one to the U.S. Supreme Court before it was finalized. So I think it has to play out when it's this close to an election. This was the closest election we've had in recent history. And you've got about 4 states that made the difference. Wisconsin, a 20,000 vote difference. And by Wisconsin law, there's automatically going to be a recount. Very close vote in Georgia, I think it's 10,000 vote difference or so. There'll be a recount there. So by state law, there has to be a recount when the election is so close. And then in Pennsylvania, you have a number of allegations of fraud, and those are lawsuits being filed, and they've got to be proven or not proven in a court. So I think it's going to take a few days.
When you say a few days, you mentioned 2,000, and that was over, I think it was 570 some votes in Florida. It was extremely, extremely close. You're right. In Georgia, sorry, not Georgia. You mentioned a couple of the states where it was extremely close. Wisconsin, yeah. Yes. It isn't a few hundred votes there. It's a bit more than that. Do you think it'll take about the same amount of time as it did in 2000?
No, I don't know that, but in a couple of states that has to be by law a recount before there's a final certification. We can't, we can't speed that up. It's the state law that governs that. And Wisconsin and Georgia, I believe, are 2 of those states, and there may be more. And then there's some lawsuits, particularly regarding allegations of fraud in Pennsylvania, and I'm sure the courts will try to take these up as quickly as possible so we can get some resolution. Let's keep in mind, we've got 2 months while this president is still in office, regardless of the outcome of this election. So the inauguration is over 2 months from now, and I think we all want to get it resolved as quickly as possible. But every vote counts, and every legal vote should be considered and count, and illegal ones should be thrown out.
You mentioned your former boss, former President George W. Bush. He released a statement over the weekend congratulating Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on their victory. He does in that statement point out that President Trump has a right to request recounts and pursue legal challenges, but he says the American people can have confidence that this election was fundamentally fair, its integrity will be upheld, and its outcome is clear. What do you read into that statement?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. I think he's exactly right. It certainly looks like President-elect Biden will be the official president-elect soon, and but still, every person has a right to a recount when the state law requires that. And number 2, when there are allegations of fraud, I think the president has every right to challenge that and let the courts decide. And that's our system, and that's our rule of law, and that's going to play out. Certainly, it looks at this point that President Biden will be elected the next president of the United States. But it's not final yet, and there's certain steps that have to be taken before it is final.
So, Ambassador, let me ask you about a relationship you're very familiar with, the Canada-U.S. relationship, and how unique it might be at this point in time as we wait for those final results, as we wait for this all to play out. What would your advice be to the federal government at this juncture?
Well, I'd be hesitant to give any advice to the Prime Minister. I think they know how to play it exactly right. They waited until there were at least the magic number was reached, electoral votes were reached by Vice President Biden before they extended congratulations. And they've got to let the system play out, just like we would let the Canadian legal system play out, and election law system play out. And you got to keep in mind that no matter what happens, this sitting president is going to be the president of the United States for a minimum of 2 more months, and you've got to continue that relationship with the Trump administration. But it will come to some finality at some point, and then we'll move on. I know that the Prime Minister has a good working relationship with Vice President Biden. I was honored to be at a dinner hosted by the Prime Minister in honor of the then outgoing Vice President 4 years ago in Ottawa. And they said a lot of nice things about each other. I'm sure they have a good working relationship that I was able to observe firsthand that relationships at the top matter. And I saw that in Prime Minister Harper and President Bush doing their time together.
Any early thoughts beyond the sort of tone and tenor of the relationship about what potential impact President-elect Joe Biden's government or policies might have on this country? It's the things that you might be watching for.
Well, sure. I think the first one, the front burner issue, would be the KXL pipeline. President Trump has supported it, issued a presidential permit allowing it. Vice President Biden has said on the campaign that'd be one of the first actions he took as president, is to rescind that presidential permit. I hope that doesn't come to fruition, because I believe it will be detrimental to Canada, to the Canadian energy sector in Canada, in particular Western Canada. So I think that's a top issue for Canadians, and a major concern. You've got trade disputes like the softwood lumber issue that's been going on now for a number of years. And then you, of course, got how we deal together with against COVID-19 and try to get the borders back open at some reasonable time that's safe for everyone, so travel can continue and trade can continue between our two countries.
Okay, I'll leave it there, Ambassador Wilkins. Really appreciate your time this evening.
Thanks very much.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.